Welcome back to the new adventures of the monad. When it comes to the evolution of life on our current, the fourth chain, we drilled down into the finer details as we came closer to our own time. We have now effectively come to a point where we are no longer discussing the past, but where we are today and where we will go next. For the first half of the 20th century, the fifth subrace was the main game in town and responsible for most of the high points and practically all of the low points of human civilization and thought. The end of the Second World War was a turning point when the focus of human development shifted decidedly to the Americas. Why? Let's look at that now. The sixth subrace of the fifth Aryan root race is already rapidly coming into existence in Australia, Canada and America, with isolated members of it in the older European countries. In the past, it was difficult for a monad to avail itself of the most powerful life current flowing through the planet, unless they were geographically focused. We see that clearly for the first four subraces. The fifth subrace began to incorporate people from around the globe into their own centers of civilization, as well as introducing their laws and customs into the older cultures. This allowed a monad to be born just about anywhere and come under the influence of the prevailing developmental theme expressing itself on the planet. However, the old centers of civilizational development do contain constraints that make it more difficult for a monad to perhaps express opinions and live by customs that are not socially acceptable where they were born. These souls often migrate so that they can live in an environment that is not so restrictive. Despite the globalization of some cultural values, there are still definitive foci where those values are most strongly present. What can be seen today is that the emergent sixth subrace in the Americas is having a dominant influence on the fifth subrace, centered as it is in Western Europe. Over time, we are going to see a serene and dignified decline into fruitful and venerable old age for Europe, as Arthur Powell describes it. There are still strong reactionary forces in both the Americas and Europe that are pushing back against the inexorable march into the Aquarian age, where the group rather than the individual will be the focus of human development. At the end of any cycle, there seems to be a concentration of traits that represent the worst the previous cycle seems to manifest. The old Dark Lords of Atlantis are not going to give up their grip on us just yet, but ultimately they are fighting a losing battle. We will find as we progress into the 21st century and the centuries beyond that the form of the body, emotions and mind will be modified to suit the new subrace. Already the modeling power of the Manu's mind and will is at work on the inner planes, modifying the physical type of the children of the new age, wherever they may be susceptible to it. Some of the junior members of the hierarchy, working in the outer world, have instructions to provide for these monads, when possible, the education and training that benefits the new subrace type. This work, small as yet, is destined to swell to enormous proportions within a few centuries, and the sixth subrace will stand out as distinct and admirable, while the world continues to develop the fifth subrace to its maturity. The new race has, of course, to be built out of the fifth subrace, the new characteristics required being developed one by one in the incarnate personas concerned. The process of preparation is long and may well extend over several lives. The investment you make today will reap dividends in your own future. I have often been puzzled when people explain that the world is going to hell and therefore they will not bring children into it. My feeling on the matter is that if you don't reproduce, when and where exactly do you intend to incarnate again to carry on your own evolutionary development? Even at its culmination, the type of the sixth subrace will not be uniform. In the main, it will be a dolichocephalous race, meaning long-skulled, but it will contain fair-haired and dark-haired people, people with blue eyes and people with brown eyes. Why? Because, if you notice, the countries listed as the foci for the sixth subrace are a melting pot of not just the fifth subrace, but all the other subraces and the fourth root race stock as well. Putting aside the concerns of white supremacists, the hybridization of a gene pool usually leads to an increased vigor of the F1 hybrid. I am speaking with my agronomist hat on, but what applies to plants applies to humans as well. The Manu may not be working openly and directly with humanity at present, but he is around somewhere. Whilst the emotional and mental traits are the more important, in most cases it is only by the physical appearance that one can make an estimate of this newly emerging melting pot of humans. Over the next few centuries, perhaps the most marked physical token of this new subrace will be delicate, well-shaped hands and feet, thin fingers and oval nails, especially thinness in the fingers and thumb when seen edgewise. The texture of the skin will be clear, never coarse, according to Powell. There is also a distinguishing expression which, if one looks for it, will soon begin to be recognized. The children of the emerging subrace will not easily resonate with older forms of teaching and discipline. The problem is that the left-hand path has cunningly developed smartphones and social media to regress rather than progress human development. It is up to us all to resist these pressures on ourselves and the next generation, so that the inherent superior qualities of the children of today can be allowed to flourish rather than be dulled, which seems to be the case at present in too many cases. A special mark of the newly developing consciousness is the recognition of unity with each other and our environment. This will predispose people more to expressing compassion and self-sacrifice. It is essentially the qualities of the spirit that are needed, so that though there may be less intellectual development, that is not what is mainly required. For the spirit unites what the growing intellect divides. Growing out of this, there will be breadth and liberality of tolerance. All that is narrow and exclusive, all that tends to separate one from another, that emphasizes difference instead of likeness, will be the antithesis of the new consciousness. The nervous organization will be more refined, but not necessarily unhealthy. So let us say it will be delicately poised. It is more subject to being jarred and injured, so that a child may be readily thrown out of balance. We need to provide children with an environment that is gentler and more harmonious than is usually to be found in many large cities today. The separative conditions of competitive, struggle, class, individual and trade antagonism, all these are destructive to the development of the new and finer nervous organization, for which something more harmonious will have to be found so that the new type of person may develop satisfactorily. The essence of action in the sixth subrace will be the union of many to achieve a single objective, not the dominance of one who compels others to their will. Those who lead will do so not by the exercise of will, but by love, sympathy, and comprehension. Tenderness will be the mark of power, and working with rather than against others. The forerunners of the sixth subrace will display a synthesizing spirit, being able to unite the diversity of opinion and character, able to gather around them the most disparate elements and blend them into a common whole. The presence of weakness, which in the fifth subrace was so often provocative and calls out an impatient response, will evoke instead tenderness and protection. The feeble, sentimental sympathy that comes with a poor and undeveloped nature is not compassion. It has no power of healing in it and no power of protection. True compassion is able to give help, feelings being guided by knowledge, the remedy being shaped by the understanding. This will be, as said, a predominant characteristic of the sixth subrace. The new race will possess certain psychic powers, and for this the pituitary body will be developed, thus giving an additional sense, that of cognizing emotions in their own envelope during ordinary waking consciousness. We may say, in general, that the sixth sub-race will bring in intuition and wisdom, blending all that is best in the intelligence of the fifth sub-race and the emotions of the fourth sub-race. Do you feel part of this emerging new sub-race? Does its ethos and core values resonate with you? It will only come to pass if we hold on to those core values and express them in our lives. Most importantly of all, they will be passed on to the next generation, so they can build on 80,000 years of development, guided by Vaivasvata Manu. He has not finished with us yet. After the sixth comes the seventh sub-race that will center itself in South America. However, the zenith of the fifth root race will have occurred in the flowering of the sixth sub-race, and it is from this sub-race that the next Manu will draw the rootstock of the sixth and seventh root races. Let us begin to consider that prospect in the next presentation. Thank you.